Dubai. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم لك الحمد حمدا دائما مع دوامك، ولك الحمد حمدا خالدا مع خلودك، ولك الحمد حمدا لا يريد قائله إلا رضاك، ولك الحمد بالقرآن، ولك الحمد بما هديتنا، ولك الحمد بما سترتنا يا ربنا. لك الحمد كما ينبغي لجلال وجهك وعظيم سلطانك. ثم الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن نهج منهجهم إلى يوم الدين. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. بسم الله على أنفسنا وديننا، بسم الله على أهلنا وأموالنا، بسم الله على كل شيء أعطانا ربنا، بسم الله خير الأسماء، بسم الله رب الأرض والسماء، بسم الله الذي لا يضر مع اسمه داء، بسم الله افتتحنا وعلى الله توكلنا. الله ربنا لا نشرك به أحدا. نسألك اللهم خيرك من خيرك الذي لا يطيع غيرك، عز جارك وجل ثناؤك، ولا إله إلا أنت. اجعلنا في عياذك وجوارك من كل سوء ومن الشيطان الرجيم. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Mr. Chairman, the Amir Sab, Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat Nigeria, Our Royal Majesty, the Regent of Isolo Kingdom, Akure, the representative of the Honorable Commissioner for Education, the representative of the Honorable Commissioner for Youth and Sports, the representative of the Vice Chancellor, Federal University of Technology, Akure, the representative of the Supreme Council for Islamic Affairs, Ondo State, the representative of the Izalatul Bid'ah wa Iqamatus Sunnah, all other protocols duly observed. I say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We give thanks to Allah the Almighty who has given us this opportunity of coming together. We glorify His name, we exalt His attributes, and we most humbly beseech Him to bestow His blessings upon the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Beloved brothers and sisters in Islam, distinguished guests, the topic of this talk is 100 years of Nigeria, concerns on youth development. After listening to the khutbah, the Jummah's sermon of the Amir Sahib yesterday, I said this lecture was no longer necessary. But considering the fact that not everybody here today was present yesterday, I will try to make a summary of virtually everything the Amir discussed. Though the story of Nigeria as it is known today dates back to more than 2,000 years, much of the earlier history of the various ethnic nationalities that populate the vast area we now call Nigeria are shrouded in myths and legends, except for the northern region, whose history is well documented in Arabic, courtesy of their early contact with Islam and the Arabs. Since archaeological research is not so developed in the country, we still have to rely on oral tradition for the early history of most of the other parts of the country. For the purpose of this lecture, however, the birth of Nigeria as a modern corporate state began with the amalgamation of the northern and southern protectorates in January 1914 under Lord Lugard. This marked the effective beginning of internal struggle by Nigerians against the colonial authorities, though Herbert Macaulay had begun organizing Lagosians against the levy of water rate by the colonial administration before Lord Lugard became the Governor General of the vast area now christened Nigeria. The declaration of the American president at that time, President Woodrow Wilson, that all nations have a right to self-determination, ignited the first spark of nationalist struggles among Nigerians. Though, it was Woodrow Wilson that authored the two principles of international relations, the right of peoples to self-determination and the inadmissibility of the use of force in the acquisition of territories. When he proposed the notion that every nation has a right to self-determination, he realized that the colonial authorities would not agree with him. So, after rising from the Atlantic Charter in 1940 with Winston Churchill of Britain, they adjusted it and said, it is true that every nation has a right to self-determination. It is also true that not every nation can govern itself. That is a topic for another discourse. This spark was to receive impetus from the writings and thoughts of people like Edward Blyden, from the writings of Edward Blyden, W.E. Du Bois, and Marcus Garvey. It is, however, worthy of note that at the outset, the struggle were not so much for self-rule as they were for participation in the existing system. Kenneth Dickey writes, after amalgamation in 1914, what the nationalists fought was the exclusiveness and racial basis of the crown colony system of government. At the beginning, the fight was not so much for self-government, but for a measure of participation in the existing government. However, with the passage of time, the efforts of Herbert Macaulay and others paid off, and the initial spark of nationalist struggle blossomed into an inferno and eventually led to the Nigerian independence from British rule in 1960. Nigeria and the search for identity. That Nigeria is plagued by lethal socio-political maladies that threaten its well-being is a fact too glaring to be contested, and the fact that leadership is the greatest challenge to our corporate existence is too obvious to be reiterated. On attaining independence in 1960, the nation was looked upon as the giant of Africa and a refreshingly promising experiment in parliamentary democracy. When on the 15th of January 1966, a military coup struck, only to be followed by another one in July of the same year, the whole world asked, what is wrong with Nigeria? It is, however, disheartening to note that 48 years after those coups, 48 years after those coups, we have not stopped asking, what is wrong with us? Any attempt to answer this question must first take into consideration the ideological framework within which the Nigerian psyche was formed. This is because what the nation experiences today has its root in the ideals and idiosyncrasies of all the ethnic nationalities that populate it, and how these ideals have received, interpreted, and adjusted to the inherited socio-political ideology of the colonial administrators. It is not certain it is not certain that the founding fathers of this nation took time to reflect on what they were going to do with independence once achieved. They set out without a national conference to decide on what was to be the fate of all the ethnic nationalities that congregate on this vast plain. And the result of this terrible oversight is the decadent polity with its attendant challenges and of insecurity which we have inherited. These founding fathers, however, had a clear picture of the kind of country they wanted to build, though it was not sure that they knew how they were going to go about it. Nevertheless, their dream was to have a united, strong and self-reliant nation, a great and dynamic economy, a just and egalitarian society, a land of bright and full opportunities for all citizens, and free democratic society. Those of us who were fortunate to meet the first national anthem of Nigeria will see that that national anthem sort of encapsulates what their dream was. I'm sure most of the Khuddam who are in white and black uniform today may not recollect, because so many of us were still young then. I think it was replaced in 1979 or 80. If you can still recollect, chant it with me. Nigeria, our own dear native, though tribe and tongue may differ, in brotherhood we stand. Nigerians all are proud to serve our sovereign motherland. Our flag shall be a symbol. That our flag shall be. They don't know that. Our flag shall be a symbol that truth and justice reign, in peace and battle honored. And this we count as gain, to hand unto our children a banner without stain. O God of all creation, grant this our one request. Help us to build a nation where no man is oppressed, and so with peace and plenty, Nigeria may be blessed. That was the dream of the founding fathers of Nigeria. But because they did not have the opportunity of sitting together to chart a future for this country, less than 6 years after independence, the military struck. And since 1966, we've been moving from one crisis to another. Apart from the late Chief Obafemi Awolowo, who gave considerable thought to how the nation was to be built in his celebrated works, he was perhaps the only Nigerian leader that felt that it was necessary to have an ideological document to determine the way the country was to be governed. And he wrote a lot of books. Even when he was in prison, thoughts on the Nigerian Constitution, the People's Republic, strategies and tactics of the People's Republic of Nigeria. So many things. And Nigeria's path to greatness. Most of the issues he raised then, most of the things we clamor for these days, state police, resource control, these were the issues the old man foresaw and included in his works. But we, in our ignorance, we refused to listen to him. The nation, therefore, dilly-dallied with several plans and policies that often get killed at the level of implementation. Nigeria and development efforts. Nigeria is the most populous nation in Africa and the 11th in the world. There is perhaps not up to 5 nations that are as endowed as she is in human and natural resources. In fact, last year I was attending a conference at the University of Massachusetts in the US, and there was this conference they had on Nigeria in the next 100 years. And I looked at the at the discussants. None was a Nigerian. Here were non-Nigerians discussing the future of Nigeria. And one of them said, he was a United Nations consultant, he said, if he had his way, the whole of Ondo State, he will relocate them. Said if he had his way, because Ondo State of Nigeria is sitting on a mine of limestone, that the limestone in Ondo State alone is enough to provide cement in 2/3 of the world, as it is known today. Says if he had his way, he would just move everybody from Ondo State, relocate them somewhere so that the government can tap the limestone there. And you know what our government does? We give license to private organizations to loot what should be part of the national wealth. It is, however, unfortunate to know that 54 years after our independence, our performance in the spheres of social engineering, economic growth, and political stability does not in any way represent our potentials or project the true yearnings of our citizens, our vast natural endowments notwithstanding. Despite the abundant resources, there is no effective coordination of each sector of the economy at the center. Government agencies do not operate as if there is an agreed upon direction towards which all policies and governmental activities must head. Obviously disenchanted by the national development plans of the 70s and the unfulfilled Millennium Goals, the Nigerian government in November 1996 set up a committee of 248 members, including 25 foreign-based Nigerians, to develop Vision 2010. The committee structured its assignment under 53 subcommittees covering 13 critical success factors, 17 economic issues, 17 special issues, and 6 general issues. After several deliberations, debates, and research, the committee concluded that by year 2010, Nigeria will have transformed into a country which is a united, industrious, caring, and God-fearing democratic society, committed to making the basic needs of life affordable for everyone and creating Africa's leading economy. How true that is, ye are my witnesses. The committee reported its findings under the following areas on which it proposed that the country should focus to attain this vision. 1. Value system, political culture, economy, education, health, industry, petroleum and solid minerals, agriculture, rural and urban development, unemployment, infrastructure, poverty alleviation, small and medium-scale enterprises, public and private sector partnership, stable environmental policy, law and order, anti-corruption drive, good governance, external image, capital mobilizations. As laudable as this plan was, poor management as well as immoral corporate practices combined to kill the vision. Characteristically, the government, on realizing the futility of attaining Vision 2010, first toyed with Vision 2015, but later settled for Vision 2020, the mission statement of which is, by 2020, Nigeria will be one of the 20 largest economies of the world, able to consolidate its leadership role in Africa and establish itself as a significant player in the global economic and political area. It is curiously strange that in all these development goals and policies, the most important segment of the Nigerian society, the youth, were not specifically addressed until 2001, when the former Nigerian President Olusegun Obasanjo announced the National Youth Development Policy. In his foreword to the policy document, President Obasanjo writes, "Youth are one of the greatest assets that any nation can have. Not only are they legitimately regarded as the future leaders, they are potentially and actually the greatest investment for a country's development. They serve as a good measure of the extent to which a country can reproduce as well as sustain itself. The extent of their vitality, responsible conduct, and roles in society is positively correlated with the development of their country. Nigeria's population is predominantly young. Therefore, the present administration, that is Obasanjo administration, having given due consideration to the significance of youth in socio-economic and political development, has found it most desirable and necessary to initiate this National Youth Development Policy so that there will be a purposeful, focused, well-articulated, and well-directed effort aimed at tapping the energy and resourcefulness of the youth and harnessing them for the vitality, growth, and development of the country well into the 21st century. As beautiful as the contents of the policy document seem, the issue of national values is underplayed, despite the fact that socio-economic development cannot be achieved if it is not driven by values that can make it wholesome. A development policy for the youth, therefore, without a program for the inculcation of the right values, is nothing but a waste of time. The last 3 decades saw the shift from the view of the state as a central agency of development to a view that perceived the markets and the private sector as the engine room of development. At the center of this debate is the generation of prosperity and the spread of this prosperity to a majority of the population of a country, the role of the state in the process, the cost of the social and environmental transformation that it entails, as well as the distribution of the burden among the various strata of society. Generally, development is related to the human capacity to improve the quality of life by transforming the way production and other human activities are carried out in order to eradicate poverty, unemployment, and social inequalities. According to Dudley Sear, economic development is the progressive elimination of poverty, unemployment, and inequality, while in the opinion of authorities like Amartya Sen, the emphasis should be on the concept of capacities and entitlements and social rights in general. Therefore, development has 6 components, according to Goulet. These are: 1, an economic component, dealing with the creation of wealth and improved conditions of material life equitably distributed. 2, a social ingredient, measured as well-being in health, education, housing, and employment. 3, a political dimension, including such values as human rights, political freedom, enfranchisement, and some form of democracy. 4, a cultural dimension, in recognition of the fact that cultures confer identity and self-worth on people. 6, a full life paradigm, which refers to meanings, systems, symbols, and beliefs concerning the ultimate meaning of life and history, and a commitment to ecologically sound and sustainable development so that the present generation does not undermine the position of future generations. Conceived in this manner, development is a comprehensive process that is underlined by values, both in terms of its goals, process, and sustenance. Indeed, At the center of development is human agency with individual, social, and ethical dimensions. Youth development in Nigeria are concerns. The Nigerian National Youth Development Policy defines youth as young men and women of between 18 and 35 years. This period is obviously the most important period in the life of a human being. This is the time the most distinguishing features of mental and physical growth reach maturity in an individual. The youth at this period may be the source of blessings for the nation or a harbinger of doom. The future of any nation depends largely on the position of the youth in the socio-political wisdom of the drivers of that particular nation's economy. It is disheartening to note that Nigeria is one sorry example of a nation that is totally insensitive to the plight of our youth. Despite the existence of the national policy, it is obvious that the youth have not been prepared for any leadership role in the social universe of the nation. The inadequate attention given to the education sector by successive Nigerian governments is one evidence of this fact. Bad governance and the predatory instincts of Nigerian politicians have combined to sink the boat of any development in the area of education. In fact, the Nigerian political system has no name in political science. It cannot fit effectively into any known political paradigm. It cannot fit. You can't give it any name. Call it homegrown democracy. Call it constitutional democracy. Call it whatever you want to call it. It is the name it deserves is not known because our system is unique and our politicians are unique. Brothers and sisters, among the Efik in Akwa Ibom and Cross River states, there is a common story. It is said that when a child reaches the age of 5, the parents will take the child to a pastor. The pastor will pray for the child and tell the parents what the child is going to become in the future. There was one particular family that did just this. They did exactly that. On the 5th anniversary of their child, they took the child to the pastor. And on getting there, what happened? The pastor prayed for the child. After prayer, they said, what is this boy going to become in the future? The pastor said, oh, that's a simple matter. We'll just carry out an experiment. I'll put 1,000 naira notes in a room and a bunch of bananas and a copy of the Bible. And we will lock the door. After 1 hour, if the boy takes the money, he's going to be a businessman. If he takes the Bible, he's going to be a man of God. And if he takes the banana, he's going to be a farmer. So after 1 hour, they opened the door. They didn't say the money, they didn't say the banana, they didn't say the Bible. And they turned to the pastor. Pastor, we can't find all these things there. The pastor said, let's ask him. Boy, where is the money? He said, in my pocket. Where is the banana? He said, I've eaten it. Where is the Bible? He said, I'm sitting on it. So the parents were confused and they told the pastor, but he has not taken one, he has taken the 3. What is he going to become? The pastor said he's going to become a politician. The pastor said he's going to become a politician because Nigerian politicians are special breed. You just discover that the moment you become a politician, you no longer think the way others think. You dance to a different drummer. And that's the reason why some of our friends in those days, those guys with whom we shouted, we condemned government policies together. On getting to political offices, you discover they had become something else. They now start avoiding you. They are now too busy to see you. Even those for whom we organized special prayers to attain those positions. So you discover that there is something that recreates them in the Nigerian political system. Closely related to the issue of education is the absence of an agreed upon value system to drive the socio-political activities of the government and the citizenry. Values are ideals, beliefs, and ethical codes accepted by members of the society. They shape the psyche and the selfhood of the citizenry. We have gradually, over the years, we have steadily and gradually destroyed our value system by losing our indigenous languages. The first mark of your identity is your language. The day you lose it, you start losing your essence. Our children no longer understand our indigenous languages. And Allah in His infinite wisdom has given us languages that suit our nature. Languages that can capture our social, psychosocial realities. But today our children no longer speak Yoruba or Igbo or Hausa. Everybody wants to become an Englishman. And one thing in Africa is this: ethical codes are taught from infancy. Those of us who had the good fortune of reading J.F. Odunjo's Alawiye will know that all the nursery rhymes, all the infant poems in Yoruba are character molders. In English, the focus is on building the tongue. I'm a student of comparative literature. In English, most of the nursery rhymes in English do not contain any ethical teaching. What is the message in Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star? I wonder what they are. What is the message in Humpty Dumpty Sat on the Wall? What is the message in Pussycat, Pussycat, where have you been? You cannot compare that to Ishe ni Ogun Ishe, Murasi Ishe Ọ̀rẹ́ mi, Ishe la fi di ẹni gíga. You cannot compare it with Kini wọ́n fò lè ṣe láyé tí mo rá. You cannot compare it with Kàkàkíńjẹ́, Kàkàkíńbí ẹgbàá ọ̀gùn. Máa kúkú bí ọ̀kan ṣoṣo ọ̀gá, máa fi yan aráyé lójú, máa ró òun gbéraga, ṣé ọ̀kan ṣoṣo ara ẹ ti gbàgbé? In the name of politics, we eliminated those beautiful books and replaced them with books that contain nothing. We replaced them with books that teach only abstracts. We replaced them with books that have no message for our own social universe. And gradually, our value system crumbled. In the Nigeria of today, material wealth is valued above character and national success. In the mosque, in the churches, glorified criminals are given positions of honor. Nobody is interested in how you made your money. If you are rich, you have something to spend in the house of God, you occupy a special place. So what are we doing? We are projecting these criminals as models for the youth. We are telling the youth, if you want to be recognized, if you want to be honored, if you want to be given a place of pride in this society, be like these. So we promote criminals in our society. Money is worshipped as the greatest thing in life, regardless of how it is acquired. Embezzlement of public funds and other forms of corruption reign supreme. Nigerians will be wise to emulate Mohandas Gandhi, who advised his Indian compatriots on the need to to reorientate the Indian society against 1, wealth without work; 2, pleasure without conscience; 3, science without humanity; 4, politics without principle; 5, commerce without morality; and 6, worship without sacrifice. In the light of these, attempts must be made to promote Nigeria's national values that are clearly articulated in the Nigerian Constitution but neglected in everyday life to become the real guiding principles of our daily life. They must be taught from the elementary school. These values must be taught from the elementary schools, chanted in poems, sung in songs, chronicled in the media, and above all, they must reflect in the conduct of political leaders, parents, teachers, and religious clerics. We have lost touch with the Nigerian reality. We have lost touch with our essence. And that's the reason why great names are disappearing. Because the average Nigerian youth, unfortunately, is only interested in making money without working. And some religious leaders too have contributed, have played very negative roles. When you tell me my God is not a poor God, when you give me the impression that I must be prosperous without working, Allah in His infinite wisdom has tied success to suffering. Alaysa lil insani illa ma sa'a. Man shall attain nothing except that which he strives, that which he struggles for. You must struggle to attain anything positive. In sports, we say no pain, no gain. No pain, no gain. And it is a universal maxim. In every human civilization, it is taught that you must struggle, you must experience some kind of suffering before you can be successful. Among the Arabs, it was Sayyidina Ali bin Abi Talib radiyallahu anhu that said, بِقَدْرِ الْكَدِّ تُكْتَسَبُ الْمَعَالِي. Lofty heights are attained in accordance with the amount of suffering a man experiences. وَمَنْ طَلَبَ الْأُولَى Sahir al-layali. Whoever seeks a lofty session keeps awake at night. Tarumu al-izza thumma tanamu laylan. You desire honor, you desire glory, yet you sleep at night. Yaghusul bara man talaba al-laali. Whoever seeks a lofty station dies to the bottom of the ocean. Wa man talaba al-ula min ghayri kaddin. Whoever seeks a lofty station without suffering. Ada al-umra fi talab al-mahali. Will only waste his years in search of impossibilities because it is incompatible with the divine scheme. It is incompatible with the divine scheme. That's among the Arabs. Among the Yorubas, you know. Onta bafara ṣiṣẹ́ fún ní pẹ́ lọ́wọ́ ẹ̀ ṣé ohun tí a kò bá jìyà fún ṣé kì í lè tọ́jọ́. Onta bafara ṣiṣẹ́ fún ní pẹ́ lọ́wọ́ ẹ̀. What you have not suffered for does not last long. It is what you struggle for that stays long with you. Among the Yorubas, that is the quote. Students of English literature will know the man called Alfred Lord Tennyson. He was the one that gave us the rhyme of the timber. He said, the tree that never had to fight for sun and sky and air and light, that stood out in the open plain and never got its share of rain, never became a forest king, but lived and died a shrubby thing. If you must attain success, you must be ready to pay the price for success. When we were growing up in Lagos, the big names were Mobolaji Johnson, Henry Fajamirokun, Darosha. Why have we stopped hearing those names again? Do they not have children? They had children, but the children did not suffer the way they suffered. So they could not sustain those business empires. May Allah forgive late Chief M.K. Abiola. That name is gradually going into oblivion in our midst. Because his children cannot sustain that which he built. Why? Because they didn't suffer the way he suffered. And we are all making the same mistakes. I make it, you make it. I don't want my children to suffer the way I suffered. At the end of the day, we become more stupid. We are not as wise as you. And now you think we are not good enough to become leaders because you have not prepared us to become leaders. You have not prepared us to become leaders. Among the Arabs, in classical Arabic, the word for youth is fata. It was Al-Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah that said, Inna al-fata hammalu kulli mulimmatin, laysa al-fata bimuna'ami shabbani. Said, Inna al-fata hammalu kulli mulimmatin, laysa al-fata bimuna'ami shabbani. Said, the youth. Inna al-fata hammalu kulli mulimmatin. The youth. The true youth, the one who can bear that name, is he who can bear all forms of burden. Laysa al-fata bimuna'ami shabbani. He is not a youth. He is not a youth. He who is only interested in childish pleasures. Because the Nigerian rulers are aware of the fact that they had subjected the Nigerian youth to psychic trauma, they could not involve them in determining their own future. At the ongoing confab, where the future of Nigeria is being discussed, you have 492 participants, only 18 youth. Less than 10% of the participants are under 40. Less than 10% of the participants. You want to discuss the future of the Nigerian youth. You have not included them. The National Youth Council was given six slots. One participant per geopolitical zone. Then special 6 candidates unpicked by the Almighty President. So at the end, you have only 18 out of 492 to represent the Nigerian youth. It is unfortunate. The same old blood that created holes in the ship of this nation have been called upon to deal a final blow that will sink the ship for good, or so it seems. All stakeholders, government, parents, schools, and religious organizations, media organizations, and the civil society must now work together to reorientate the Nigerian youth, since neither the environment that produced him nor the school that nurtured him has prepared him for the challenge of modern nationhood. The youth himself must wake up from his slumber and take his fate into his hand. If the nation has no plan for him, he should parent himself. In psychology, we talk about self-parenting. He should parent himself towards those lofty values stated in the Nigerian Constitution: discipline, integrity, dignity of labor, social justice, religious tolerance, self-reliance, and patriotism. It was Ilya Abu Mahdi, one of the 19th century Arab poets, that let me conclude. It was Ilya Abu Mahdi that wrote a poem which he titled Al-Fatal Afdalu, the best youth. The best youth. He said, Mada zamanun kana fihi al-fata yubahi bima qawmuhu athalu. Mada zamanun kana fihi al-fata. Gone are those days when a young man or woman, when a youth can boast with what his parents have attained. Gone are those days when you can now say, my father is a professor. Does not make you a professor. My father is an accountant does not make you an accountant unless you do what he did to become what he became. وَثَابِرْ بِجِدٍّ عَلَى نَيْلِهَا وَلَيْسَ يَخِيبُ الَّذِي يَعْمَلُ. He said, work hard, struggle to attain a lofty position. وَلَيْسَ يَخِيبُ الَّذِي يَعْمَلُ. He who works hard does not fail. He who works hard does not fail. فَلَا تَقْعُدَنْ أَنْ تُلَامْ بِالْأُولَى وَثَابِرْ بِلَادَكَ إِذْ تُغْذَلُ. And do not sit down idly. Do not be idle and say, وَتَعْذِلْ بِلَادَكَ إِذْ تُغْذَلُ, and you blame your country. Nigeria is bad. And it's because this country is bad that I've not been able to progress. If the nation is bad, you be good. Be good to yourself. وَلَسْتَ ثِيَابَ الَّتِي تَرْتَدِي. It is not the clothes you put on that determines who you are. وَلَسْتَ الْأَسَامِ الَّتِي تَعْمِلُ. It is not the name you carry that determines who you are. وَلَسْتَ الْبِلَادَ الَّتِي أَنْبَتَتْكَ وَلَكِنَّمَا أَنْتَ مَا تَفْعَلُ. It is not the town or village from which you were born that determines who you are, but you are what you do. Whatever you do for yourself determines who you are. إِذَا كُنْتَ مِنْ وَطَنٍ خَامِلٍ وَفُزْتَ فَأَنْتَ الْفَتَى الْأَفْضَلُ. If you come from a wretched village, not known in the map of your country, if you are successful, you are the best youth. Finally, permit me to conclude this talk with that beautiful poem by Helen Southey, an English poetess from the early 20th century English literature, titled Never Say Fail. Keep pushing. It is wiser than sitting aside and dreaming and sighing and waiting the tide. In life's earnest battle, they only prevail who daily march forward and never say fail. With an eye ever open and a tongue that's not dumb and a heart that will never to sorrow succumb, you will battle and conquer, though thousands assail. How strong and mighty are those who never say fail. Ahead, then keep pushing and elbow your way, unheeding the envious and asses that bray. All obstacles vanish, all enemies quail, in the might of their wisdom, who will never say fail. In life's rosy morning, in manhood's firm pride, let this be the motto, your footsteps to guide. In storm and in sunshine, whatever assail, we will onward and conquer and never say fail. Prophet Isa alayhi salatu wasalam, Jesus Christ, is reported to have said in the Bible, I have yet many things to say unto you, but ye cannot bear them now. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun ala al-mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.
Thank you. All the delegates seated, I want to welcome you in the name of the Almighty Allah, the merciful and the gracious. Assalamu alaikum. I want to say congratulations on your 42nd annual convention. And I pray the Almighty Allah will be with you, will guide you, will continue to promote you. And I would like to say thank you on behalf of the Solo community to the Ahmadiyya youth for rendering a selfless service to our people on Wednesday. May God Almighty be with you.
Amen.
Thank you.
Allahu Akbar.
With the permission of the Ahmed sir, I want to recognize the presence of the missionary in charge, Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat, in our midst. While the guest lecturer was delivering his lecture, he walked in quietly and took his seat. I know he's a man that does not want much recognition after he has walked in. But again, we are doing this, I think, for the purpose of others too, other guests that are in our midst. Halam wa salam wa marhaban bik.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We still await the chairman of this occasion to return to his seat. I want to talk briefly about the gifts we are giving our guests, and they are basically to promote intellectual development, scientifically